Moon is in mid-Cancer today, and I've already gone several rounds and rounds and rounds of talking about the moon in every energy, the beginning of it, the middle of it, the end of it. So what else can I say? But the thing is, the river continues, even though you might be, you in that river, but the river is different, as the Buddhists say. So, what is there today in this river when we see the moon in Cancer? Well, first, I just finished a recording on memory. I was talking about my memory glitches, and I just remembered that Cancer is a water element, and the water element is actually connected to memories. Memory is not simply like physical brain connections, but memory in a more spiritual sense, in a more universal sense. Water is a great medium to record information. And think about it, air and fire are just moving too fast, and the earth element might be a little bit too heavy and too hard to kind of code information. So that leaves water, at least in the Western tradition of four elements. And water is actually particularly good to code memories. You can see there's some Western energy tradition. Homeopathy comes into mind. I did play with homeopathy once, long time ago. It all started because I saw someone who was very dismissive and was giving a presentation on how this is all woo and stupid and the biggest idiocy, and they were making claims that after I don't know if you're familiar with homeopathy, but the idea is that you take a substance that matches your symptoms and then you put it in water and then you dilute, then shake and dilute, and then you throw away most of the water and you reserve one little drop and then dilute that one and then again shake, and then after that you get rid of the 99% of the water and you leave that one little drop, and you do it so many times that in fact the person who was debunking the homeopathy made this grand claim and said, well, you see, by the time they're done diluting, there's not a single atom left in the water, and therefore they're charlatans. And it irked me. I hate that, because suddenly I've always been very sensitive to inconsistencies or false logic or gaps in the logic, where someone is trying to kind of walk you through a predetermined step, and they are fudging and misbehaving. So I remember when I first heard that, I was so angry. I didn't even know what homeopathy was. So I said, you know what? Who are you? And you're so fake. So what I did is I went home and started reading about the homeopathy. What irritated me was the fallacy of the argument. He started with something saying that the people who practice homeopathy claim that this can heal certain illnesses. And then he ended up with the conclusion that since there's not a single atom left in the substance, therefore there's no healing. It's like, they were missing huge gaps in your arguments, buddy. First of all, I have yet to hear someone making a claim that that single atom or molecule has to be the one healing. And without that claim, the whole debunking fell through. So I have gotten into many areas because I was listening to someone presumably debunking them, and I caught the fallacy and the false logic, and I said, wait, and I went there to investigate, and all of a sudden I ended up in those areas. The same thing with homeopathy. I don't practice it. I played with it a little bit. I had for a longest time, the medical doctor, the pediatrician for my children, liked to also indulge in homeopathy. So we played with him back and forth. He would give us like a conventional prescription, and then he would say, do you want to try homeopathy first? And my experience is that it's a hit and miss, just with everything else, because there's a human path there, there's a human will, free will, everybody has their own script that they have, or plan life plan. And so you can't really force one remedy when that remedy is not really meant to help that person. I have made peace with that. But at the same time, there's no need to dismiss it, because everything else is the same way. The conventional medicine works for some people and it doesn't work for others. Food, dieting, you name it. I have made peace that there is no single remedy that can come and force healing on everybody. And spiritually, it goes against that, against my common sense. You cannot force healing on someone who is not ready to be healed. Anyway, so going back to that homeopathy, the whole reason I went down the rabbit hole with homeopathy was because there's something there about memory, that water carries that memory. And that's what I heard the first time when the guy was debunking homeopathy. Because again, this probably comes from my conventional background in physics, theoretical physics. Have been trained, and all of us who have gone through the advanced degrees in physics have been trained in quantum mechanics, and some of the more the higher levels of those courses up there in graduate school. And there we know how much atoms and molecules are entangled, how much it is about the overall state. On a quantum level, for instance, if you have a system of many, many molecules, actually, or many atoms, that will be solid state, which is my background, really. The physicists themselves do not say, hey, let's pull out one atom and let's look around and, oh, I understand everything. The solid state physicists actually have created models how they can work with the entire system as a whole. The part of it is not indicative of what the whole is. This is like, the antithesis of the reductionist theory, which is in classical physics. The quantum mechanics is all about looking at the whole picture. And so when I was listening to the debunking of homeopathy, that is what I heard. It's like, wait a minute, I don't know. I mean, yes, there's no single atom left in that little water bottle that they would actually give to someone, presumably for healing. But at the same time, who is there not to say that we are healed through the water state, the quantum states of that water? I don't know. I don't know of any physical science experiments, but then again, the situation with hard sciences is very difficult, because the physicists, the conventional scientists, need to get funding from corporations or from the government. And every time when you get an external funding, you are kind of beholden to the interests of the person who is giving you that funding. And so if there is no interest in funding honest experiments with homeopathy, nobody's going to pay you money to do so. So you can't find really conventional research on that. But at the same time, that doesn't mean there's no potential for it, because again, I don't see any reason why, and I have yet to see anybody coming and proving it to me that no, it is not about the quantum state of the water after you have shaken and diluted that initial substance. Which brings me back to the memory. And to me, again, that is when I first read in astrology, in an astrological context, that water is about memory in one of those esoteric astrological books. That's how I started. I started with Alan Leo and Max Heindel. I did not start with the back page of the newspaper. So I tend to go on to more abstract parts, and so when I heard that the water element is the one connected to memory, it made sense. And again, drawing that on that experience with the homeopathy, it's like, well, yes. And then my training in quantum physics, I was like, it could be. I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that is the whole picture. But what I'm saying is, nobody has disproved it yet. And so until someone comes and gives me a real proof, physical proof that no, that doesn't, it cannot happen that way. To me, the idea that the water can hold memory is not just only metaphysical or spiritual idea, but actually quite physical. Quite physical can be there if you think in terms of quantum mechanics, how everything is in a one state. And And keep in mind that those states, water could be in one quantum mechanical state or another quantum mechanical state, and you cannot distinguish it through chemical processes. The chemical processes do not, at least at the level that we are having our chemistry experiments, do not allow for that that ability to distinguish one state from another. So we are still quite in the baby stages of science. I sometimes like to imagine someday the science will catch up and start doing those experiments. But in the meantime, Moon in Cancer is about our memories. Cancer actually makes the memory and records them. So if you think about it, the entire water element is about memory, and this is how I picture it. There are three water signs: Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces. And if you remember that they're part of the water element, you can think of the Cancer as the one that records the memory. This is why Cancer is connected with the sensitivity. You're sensitive, you're impressionable, you can sense someone's disturbance, you can actually give comfort. You can deal with that emotional trauma, because again, emotional trauma is so much about memory that you're not being able to, you have that memory and then you don't know what to do with it. And that is when Scorpio comes. And so if you talk to the astrologers, they'll tell you how Scorpio people make great therapists, and for a good reason, because the Scorpio energy is the one that the water element, again, dealing with memory. But the job of Scorpio now is to take the memories recorded from Cancer, the senses, the sensibility. Okay, this is what happened to me. This is what happened to me. And now Scorpio will process that. So it will distill and process, go to the bottom. And that's why Scorpio has that reputation of being very strong, very courageous, and almost can see any ugliness without really being affected that much. Well, because you have to. This is your hidden power, the Scorpio energy, where you can actually look through your emotions and process and distill and get to the bottom of it. And at the bottom of it is always the truth of what it is. And once you've done your Scorpio work, then you're ready for Pisces. Pisces, being the 12th and last sign in the 12th division, is like, okay, closing shop now. So it's almost kind of, not kind of, it is time to let go. That's why the Pisces energy is so much about release, letting go, forgiveness, withdrawal. You need to step back from all this work and say, okay, it's distilled, I processed it, I took all the benefit that I could, and the rest is no longer valid, and I'm just letting go. So I hope that my musings on Moon in Cancer and the water element in astrology today helped you gain some clarity on the three water elements in your chart, because they are in your chart, and now you can actually go and check where they lie within your chart, right? They form a triangle, so they will be either, if you find one of them in your first house, then the other one is going to be in the fifth house, and then the other one is going to be in the ninth house. But if you find one of them in the fourth house, then the other one will be the eighth and the 12th. So they will always form a triangle, and that is your water triangle in your chart that helps you process emotion. And it is so important nowadays, with so much ugliness coming up on the surface of the planet and in our personal, professional lives. We are bombarded, and we actually almost drowning in that emotional trauma. And all the more we need that water element. We need to connect to the water element and our chart is the map, how best we can use that water element. For me, the water element shows up in the second, sixth house, and the 10th. And there it is. The 10th house is all about visibility. Maybe it's not a coincidence that today I felt moved to record myself and share that with you guys. The 10th house is all about what I'm comfortable showing to the world. And there it is. My Cancer is there. I was like, yep, this is it. We're going to talk about Moon in Cancer. We're going to record ourselves and put it for everybody to see us. But your water element might be playing somewhere else. Your water element could be in the 4th house, and there it will be in the 8th and the 12th. And the 4th house, for instance, is so much about it's the natural, somewhat natural placement, because planetary Cancer is the 4th element, the 4th house there for the entire planet. And there, the water element could be more about how you are actually using that for your home, for your home base, for your family, keeping everything kind, compassionate, empathetic, or keeping your emotions close to your heart, right? That will be the 4th house, because everything is very, very private, opposite to the 10th. And so I hope this kind of gives you an idea and a starting point of how you can actually explore the water element. And certainly go ahead and check and see where it is in your chart, because that will help you. That is where the emotions are recorded, processed, stilled, and eventually healed. And there is no healing without going through your water element in your chart.